watching Halton News right here on your TV. It's Thursday, July 30th. I'm your host, Sherry Ford, in for Jessica Kading. COVID numbers continue to trend in the right direction in the Halton region. The numbers have fallen from 26 total active cases to 24. Halton Hills currently has only one active case. Burlington is down 2 and sits at 5. Milton has stayed the same at 8 cases. Only Oakville has seen a rise, just 1 new case in the last 24 hours with 10 active cases. So the decision has been made. Premier Doug Ford announced today that elementary students will be heading back to school full-time come September, while most high school students will split their time between the classroom and online learning, attending school on alternating days in cohorts of about 15. Non-medical masks for students from grade 4 to grade 12 will be mandatory.
We're going to get our kids back to school in a way that looks and feels as much as it used to. 5 days a week, 5 hours of instruction a day with lunch and breaks in between. We've consulted with Dr. Williams, Dr. Yaffe, Ontario Health, the experts at Sick Kids Hospital, and our local public health experts. Parents, we want you to know that on September the 8th, you can drop your child off at school, knowing that every possible measure is being taken to keep our children safe, knowing that there's a detailed plan to keep our kids safe.
All publicly funded elementary schools will be reopening province-wide in September 5 days a week. This will also include a safe reopening of the childcare sector to permit operators to reach that full capacity as of September 1. That was a promise the Premier and I have made to moms and dads of this province, and it's a promise we intend to keep. Second, most secondary schools will reopen under an adapted model that limits the size and the interaction of cohorts. As we have previously laid out, groups of 15 students will alternate between attending class in person and online. Secondary schools with lower risk profiles will be able to reopen with a full return to class in person 5 days a week. As we've always said, we will continue to respect the choice and the authority of parents, the choice of whether to enroll their children for in-school instruction, the choice of determining when and if they feel comfortable with their child re-entering school during the year, and the expectation and delivery of live, online, teacher-led synchronous learning for their child when they're not in school.
Joining us now is MPP for Oakville North Burlington, Effie Triantafilopoulos. Effie, major news today on the education front with elementary students going back full-time while class size will remain at the mandated maximum level come fall. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think that it's long-awaited news. Obviously, parents and educators have been looking for a very concrete plan that the Ministry of Education could provide them so that we have some certainty going into September. So I believe that the plan allows us the flexibility to be able to still deal with any potential COVID outbreak should that happen. So in terms of the elementary students, as you were saying, it's going to be 5 days a week, 5 hours of instruction. All elementary schools will reopen. They're going to be remaining in their same cohort with the same teacher in the same classroom. So that allows for them to remain in that classroom 1 meter apart. And no masks will be required for the students up to grade 3.
Now, secondary students will have different rules, alternating classroom days and capped at 15 students per class. Is this feasible, let alone safe?
I believe it's because we need to ensure the safety of the students and the teachers that model of cohorting at 15 is the one has been employed. And don't forget, there's been a lot of consultations done with health experts, our chief medical officer, and also medical experts at Sick Kids Hospital. So this has all come as a result of that kind of informed opinion. So yes, I believe it will be safe. And I think the important thing too to note is that parents who have still concerns about their children going into that kind of environment do have the option to revert to the online learning, which is what has been happening for the last few months.
That'll put some burden on both the teachers and parents, because teachers will have to teach that, and parents, some parents will be teaching it themselves.
Well, the government and the ministry have put an awful lot of investments to ensure that we're able to be prepared for the fall. So as an example, the total funding that's been put into it is $309 million to hire 500 public health nurses for the schools, 900 custodians to keep schools clean. They're going to have $60 million going towards masks for the staff and cloth masks for students should students show up without one. $30 million for additional staff, $73 million going towards support surveillance testing in Ontario secondary school, because we know that that's really where the targeted testing really needs to be. $75 million will go towards hiring 1,000 custodians so that we have the cleaning that's required in that environment. $40 million for cleaning school buses, $10 million for health and safety training for occasional teachers and casual staff, and $10 million to help support special education students in the classroom so that we can actually hire more EAs if we need them, as well as $10 million going towards mental health supports. And this is in addition to the $10 million for mental health that was announced last month, for a total of $20 million. So a lot of investment, a lot of thought gone into the planning of how to make this work for our students and obviously for our parents as well.
Interesting times for sure, Effie. I guess we'll see what happens in the fall. Thanks for your time and stay safe out there. Joining me now is MP for Oakville North Burlington, Pam Demoff. Obviously, this pandemic has hit so many individuals, businesses, and industries hard in the pocketbook. None quite like public transportation, so clearly welcome news with this week's announcement of the funding Oakville received from all three levels of government for help to modernize Oakville's transit system. A whopping $60 million.
Yeah, it was a big announcement, and actually there'll be more on the way to deal with COVID-related stuff. This is a really exciting transformation of Oakville Transit's system because it's going to electrify the fleet. So it's $66.2 million over the next 6 years, with 26.5 coming from the federal government, 22.1 from the province, and 17.6 from the town of Oakville. And I think, it speaks to the cooperation of the three levels of government, but it will completely electrify the paratransit fleet, as well as 57 diesel buses will be replaced by electric buses. There's new charging stations that will be put in. There's also included in that will be Wi-Fi on the buses, as well as making our bus stops accessible. So if you've ever been on the sidewalk and a bus comes and there's a patch of grass in front of you, if you have accessibility issues, it's a challenge to get to the bus. So that will include paving those and putting in landing pads for them. So all in all, great news from all three levels of government working together to really modernize our Oakville transit system.
So a lot of work to do now, and any highlights that maybe come first or a possible timeline of getting things done?
I know the town has been working on this for a long time, so I'm sure they've got a very detailed timeline. But once they get the money, I know they're ready to move quite quickly in implementing this, especially when it comes to things like the Wi-Fi and the app, which don't require buying new equipment. It's just putting in place systems that will keep people connected, allow them to check to see if their bus is on time, which I know is important for usage to make sure that you know when the bus is arriving.
It was announced recently that both Toronto and the Region Appeal are advancing to Stage 3 in their reopening on Friday. Do you have any concerns for Oakville, considering you guys are so close to the city?
Yeah, I think it doesn't mean that the pandemic is over. It means that we still need to carefully follow public health guidelines. And as long as residents are doing that, I took the number 5 bus on Monday, and Oakville Transit has put in place a number of systems, plexiglass, physically distanced seating. I think as long as people continue to adhere to public health measures, I think we're fine. My worry is that people think it's all over and now we don't have to physically distance, wear a mask, wash our hands. If that's the case, then I'm worried.
Great advice, Pam. Thanks so much and stay safe.
You too.
Earlier in the week, Melissa Candelaria had a report on Action Milton's push for the mayor and council to step it up when it comes to the fight against the proposed quarry. Well, Melissa has a follow-up to that story, and in this report, she ends up speaking with one of the town councillors and other politicians on whether they will help Action Milton in their fight.
Milton Council is well aware Action Milton wants them to do more to make sure the quarry doesn't happen. Action Milton is hoping Council will issue an interim control bylaw that would freeze the application for a year, buying them time to build a case to permanently stop the project. Regional and Town Councillor Mike Cluett says he wants to make clear that, like Action Milton, Halton Region and Council have been opposed of the project since James Dick Construction Limited submitted the application in 2018.
We have been very strong in opposition to that development. We've been working obviously closely with the Milton Member of Provincial Parliament, Parm Gill, and discussing other options regarding environmental assessments or any other way that we can take action against this. We're going to follow along with the JART process as the council direction is set, where we are, and we're going to encourage and get as much public input from residents as possible. So be it Action Milton or any other member of the community that wants to have their comments entered into the JART process, we're going to ensure that that happens. JART is working with Conservation Halton Region, the town of Milton, as well as a number of different agencies in commenting on this. Because of COVID, there's been a lot of delays, so this process is still being delayed, but so there will be more time for comments to be brought into the JART process and in other processes as well. So contact your councillors, contact the MPP, let your voices be heard.
Interestingly enough, Premier Doug Ford was asked about the status of this application when he was in town Wednesday. He, along with MPP Parm Gill, essentially promised the community it wouldn't happen.
Folks, remember, you're the boss. You say jump, I say how high. That's how it works in my world. Same as the private sector business that we came from. It's always customer service excellence. You aren't going to put something in that the whole community is dead against. It's very simple. I know the mayor, you don't want it. No one wants it. I don't want it. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen one way or another.
We have attended regularly the town hall meetings that are held locally, and I understand, and I've been also speaking to the ministers that are responsible, Minister Yakubaski and Minister Urick, and I feel fairly confident. And as the Premier just mentioned, I mean, the Premier and the government is all about serving the people and making sure that the decisions that we're making are in the best interest of people. If the community does not want a project to move forward, bottom line, we're going to make sure the project doesn't move forward.
Reporting for Halton News, I'm Melissa Candelaria.
Oakville equestrian 17-year-old Lauren Gray competes in the Trillium circuit in the jumper division. She was the reserve champion at the 2018 Provincial Championship, and now she is championing a new cause close to her heart. Nikki Wesley has her story.
Lauren Gray has been riding at Parish Ridge Stables for 9 years. She identifies as mixed, black and white. She recently wrote an article for the Chronicle of the Horse, highlighting that the equestrian world needs to start having a conversation about racial issues, because keeping silent is doing more harm than good.
When I was younger, obviously, my focus was just on the sport, on the animals, on my passion for it. But as I started growing up, I definitely saw underrepresentation, not even just in the media, but even at the shows and stuff. There weren't a lot of people of color. I think it would have just been something nice to see, someone that I could look up to, not just because they look like me, but people of color face a lot of adversity, so I think it would have been something very encouraging to look up to them and see that, even throughout all the hardships that they may have, they still have love for the sport, and they're able to find success within it.
Gray is quick to point out that she hasn't felt racial tensions at her stable herself, but suspects that the predominance of white riders might be one of the reasons others haven't given the sport a chance.
Always that fear of being judged, people not understanding you and the things that you go through. And ultimately, it also comes down to how accessible it is, Riding's a very expensive sport. And I'm very privileged to be able to take part in it, but not everybody, has that opportunity, whether, you're a person of color or not. It's a very expensive sport.
Looking at equestrian advertising and media, she says there's an obvious and unnecessary bias.
Most people would, kind of showcase, the typical person in the equestrian world, which is a white person. If you look at the pros, the majority of them are white. It's not that difficult. If you go around to the barns, even my barn, for example, we have quite a few people who aren't white. You just have to look for it. You actually have to put in an effort and look for it. There's professionals that are people of color, on the A circuit, on the Trillium circuit, even on the Challenge series, on the schooling circuit. You will find them. If you put in the effort to look, I promise you that you will find them.
Since her article was published, Gray has already had offers to come and try different brands, and her message is being shared through multiple platforms. It seems she has succeeded in helping to spark the conversation.
It might not be overt racism that's present, but there definitely are some, prejudices and biases, and there's not equal opportunity for people of color. So I believe that's just something that the community honestly just needs to address as a whole and be like, you know what? It does exist. Let's work together, figure out a solution to, make the sport better and more enjoyable for everyone.
Reporting for Halton News, I'm Nikki.
Thank you for joining us here on Halton News. We need to take a short break, but we'll be right back. Welcome back to Halton News right here on your TV. As we are returning or about to return to work, the Empathy Clinic has a message for you. Take the time to understand exactly what you're made of and try to find the right balance inside to make you whole.
Today I want to talk about ingredients. We all have ingredients inside of us. And also when we get back to work, there's going to be ingredients, which are the people that we work with plus the environment that we're working in. The best way to manage return, whether it's to ourselves or to our environment that we're working in, is to look at all the ingredients separately first. So imagine that there's a part of us, maybe our compassion, our capacity to say no, maybe even our self-esteem that might need a complete overhaul. It's going to be very important to look at those things separately. So maybe take a piece of paper and write down everything about yourself that feels like an ingredient of you. If you have trouble with that, ask a friend or a family member. They'll often be quite happy to help you with that. And you can help them with theirs next. Now, let's see if we can look at all the ingredients of a cake on a counter. Individually, separately, they're not very palatable. But that's the time when we can change the overall balance, when they're separate. Once we've mixed them together in that goo and then put them in the oven and bake them, now we have a much more palatable thing, a lovely cake. So I want to think that if you can see yourself as having ingredients that you could actually change during this time, then not too salty and certainly not too sweet, then you can have the right balance of the ingredients inside you, a perfect blend. And that can apply to your company or your business of work as well, looking at people who are working together as ingredients. So stay safe and see you next time.
Turning to weather and the 5-day forecast, nice and hot heading into the weekend, sunny and 27 on Friday, 28 Saturday under sunny skies, Sunday a 60% chance of showers and 26 degrees. Showers continue into Monday with a high of 23. Things seem to dry up on Tuesday though, sunny and 23. Thank you for joining us here on Halton News. We need to take a short break, but we'll be right back with an update from the Burlington Food Bank. Welcome back to Halton News right here on your TV. I'm Sherry Ford in for Jessica Kading. The Burlington Food Bank has been providing us with updates during the pandemic. Today's installment informs us that they too are continuing to be vigilant with ever-changing protocols to keep everyone safe.
Over the last week, we've actually found that a number of our student volunteers are starting to find work, which is great news. We're really excited for them and happy that they're able to get back into the workforce. A lot of them have been looking for work and are finally able to do that. So it's good to hear that our economy is starting to do a little bit better and some places are starting to hire that maybe weren't before. With that, it means that we're bringing in a few new volunteers here and there. It's really important for us that we go through new protocol for those volunteers, that they understand that they have to wear a mask all the time inside. The bigger thing for us is actually their hand sanitization and making sure that they're switching out gloves on a regular basis, that they're making sure that everything is touched appropriately and properly, and that when we're moving on to a new surface area that we sanitize really well, making sure that everything's staying really, really safe and really clean. We just want to remind people to make sure that they're sticking within the guidelines. Though it seems like we're starting to head in the right direction and continuing in the right direction, it's really important that we stay diligent, that we don't let up, and that we continue to stay within all of the safety guidelines that were given to us by our health officers. With that being said, that's why we make sure that with new volunteers, they understand what's expected of them here at the Burlington Food Bank.
And that's it for Halton News. For more information or to catch more stories, head to our website at yourtv.tv or email us at haltonnews@cogeco.com. Thanks for watching Halton and have a great night.